Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Tuesday, October 28th. Derek Van Riper here with Eno Saris. On this episode, we relive 6 hours and 39 minutes of World Series action. Dodgers Blue Jays Game 3 was an all-timer, an instant classic. A lot of folks excited about what went down in Chavez Ravine on Monday night. Jays fans not among them, especially since it was very, very late for Jays fans living on Eastern time. Wow. I mean, what an epic game. We have so many things to pull at from this one. A lot of questions, a lot of things that maybe were borderline calls that didn't quite work out. I wanted to start with a simple question for you today. What do you remember about Max Scherzer and Tyler Glasnow's roles in Game 3? Because they did, in fact, start this game and pitched in it for a decent amount of time, relatively speaking.
I remember a lot of curveballs from Max Scherzer, from Tyler Glasnow. First pitch curveballs, and then, strangely enough, for him, he really leaned into the sinker. And I know there's always this question when you have a strength and it happens to be the same strength as the hitter. What do you do as a pitcher? Do you just lean into your strength and just throw the four-seam fastball anyway? In this case, it looks like no. Tyler Glasnow threw 13% four-seam fastballs. His yearly number is 35%. He threw 41% sinkers, twice his yearly number. And I thought there was a chance he might throw 50% curveballs. He was throwing so many of them. So that's what I remember. I remember all the first pitch curveballs from Glasnow. I remember him just really staying away from the four-seam fastball. And yet, our boy Alejandro Kirk, I guess I called that one. Alejandro Kirk took him deep. He just ambushed him on a first pitch curveball. He such knew it was coming. He's a catcher. And he went and got that thing. Plus, it was in the zone because he was trying to sneak a first pitch strike. And so, anyway, that's what I remember about the early innings. It's a bit of a fog once you get that deep into a game.
I brought it up to start the show because I think of all the things people remember, it's nothing that Max Scherzer or Tyler Glasnow did. Scherzer had 13 swinging strikes in this one, gave up that homer to Teoscar Hernandez in the second. Ohtani homered on an up-and-in fastball in the third. Scherzer eventually ran into trouble in the fifth. He was starting against the bottom of the order.
He threw a curveball to Teoscar that Teoscar hit. It was like a hanging curve.
Mm-hmm.
Although the manager called it a hanging slider later. So whatever it was a hanging breaking ball. And it wasn't just a high slider, which I think the distinction between a high slider and a hanging slider is a tough one in today's game. But it just didn't look like it broke.
So there was a few things in the early innings that I felt like I wanted to bring to the table because they were important. Addison Barger, once again from right field, making a ridiculous throw, getting a third out at home plate on Freddie Freeman in the third inning. That ended up being big, keeping the game as tight as it was. Don't run on Addison Barger. He has a ridiculous arm.
Second best outfield arm, or second best arm in baseball among defenders to O'Neal Cruz. I just wanted to throw this at you real quick. Who's third? I'll give you a hint. I'll give you a hint because it's you wouldn't get it otherwise. He also hits the ball super hard.
Hits ball super hard.
And throws ball super hard. But nobody thinks of him as a defensive wizard.
Tyler O'Neill.
That is a great guess, but it is Matt Wallner.
Yeah, I think people give O'Neill some credit for his defense. I think you're right. Most people don't. Off the cuff, give Matt Wallner credit for that type of defensive ability.
Andy Pages is seventh. There are also 2 of the 20 worst arms in baseball that were in this game. Dalton Varsho and Ty France. Come on down.
Yeah, I didn't think we were going to see Ty France. That wasn't by plan. That was by the result of George Springer eventually leaving this game mid-at-bat in the 7th with an apparent oblique strain. I think pretty likely was an oblique strain. He's having an MRI. We don't know his status for Game 4 just yet.
I can't imagine he's playing today.
Can't imagine that's going to happen.
You grab a side like that.
The other early inning thing, though, that I thought deserved a quick mention. Do you remember Bichette getting tagged out between first and second after a delayed strike call that everybody thought was ball 4 to Dalton Varsho? That was a mess because Bichette, had that not happened, Varsho walked on the next pitch. So Bichette would have been on second base had he not been just caught out there. He would have almost certainly scored from second if the same sequence that happened after the Varsho walk had happened. And that would have changed just about everything about this game. That was one of those weird things. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen that happen where there was a slight delay on a ball strike call and a runner between first and second just kind of got caught standing out there confused as to what was actually happening at home plate.
Yeah, and that's what manager John Schneider said he was talking to the umpire about, was how demonstrative his call was. And as a person who has had to score games, use Game Changer in Little League a lot, this has been a personal consternation with me. But the kids, the umpires there are like 14 and 15. And so I'm not allowed to discuss with them that they should make more demonstrative calls. But this major league umpire just made a little bit of a hand signal super late, wasn't loud and forceful with the voice. And so what I think happened was Varsho, because you see Varsho kind of starts to put away his bat thinking game ball 4. And then he like turns back as if he's heard a strike call. And then for whatever reason, he throws the bat away like it is a ball 4. So I believe that the call was not assertive enough. And that when Varsho looked back and saw Bichette out there, he thought, oh, it's a walk.
You'd think Varsho got a little bit tricked by Bichette, while Bichette maybe was also getting tricked by Varsho's posture and what Varsho was doing.
Yeah. And like
they're both looking
and
to
just
the other guy for the cue.
Not enough cueing from the umpire. And that's what Schneider said he talked to him about, being more forceful with his calls and louder with his calls. I mean, it's also a loud game, you know, I mean, as a World Series game. So that's sort of my read on what happened, but it's awful because, I mean, you can get mad at the players involved and you can say that they made poor decisions, but I don't know. In that moment, he didn't hear a call, and the call was really late. Yeah, I kind of fault the umpire on that one a little bit.
I didn't love that as a neutral observer. Felt like that was a botched situation that was avoidable overall. I did
like if you're going to call it that late, give it a big yeah, like, get it out there, dude.
Can you give us a strike call? I mean, I feel like as someone who's being critical of the children calling balls and strikes at Little League games, you got to be able to hit a good strike call on the pod.
What I just did will suffice. All right.
Fine.
We'll put me on the spot.
We'll punch it up. We'll amplify it. We'll make it louder. We'll use tools to make that the biggest strike call anybody has ever heard. It looked like it was happening again for the Blue Jays with that big 4th inning, though. 4 runs in the 4th. Vlad with a walk. Bo sliced the ball over the right side that Tommy Edman misplayed at second base. That made it 1st and 3rd. That was before the Kirk homer off the curveball that you mentioned before. So that made it 3-2 Jays. Barger singled. Ernie Clement singled. Andres Jimenez had a sac fly that brought the 4th run in. So you're sitting there as a Jays fan. You're like, all right, we did it. We put a big inning on one of
and here comes
really
bullpen,
good starters. Yeah, bullpen's going to come into the game. Maybe you give Max a little bit of buffer, see if he can do okay with a 2-run lead, but as soon as he finds trouble, go to the pen. They did it that way, and they went back to Mason Fluharty against Shohei Ohtani for Sweeper Fest 2025.
I called that one too. I'm not. These are the smallest things. I have to take some credit on the small things because I've been getting the big things wrong.
Trying to get you some flowers. Sometimes when we do things on camera, it automatically has an effect. Those effects have been turned off.
We were just joking about how Fluharty snuck a 91 mile an hour cutter past Ohtani in the last at bat, and that looked like the juiciest pitch in the at bat for Ohtani, and that maybe the next time Fluharty wasn't going to throw him any cutters, and lo and behold, he didn't. He threw sweeper after sweeper, and it reminds me of something that once his pitching coach once told me about Sergio Romo, which is that if you throw slider after slider, at some point you're going to hang one. And when you hang a fastball, or when you mislocate a fastball, it's still high velo, and so sometimes you can get away with it. 99 down the middle, whoops, but it was still 99. But in this case, 83 in the middle, to Ohtani, who has been seeing flu-hardy sweepers in his dreams. I mean, I'm sure he like went and turned the trajector on downstairs and saw some flu-hardy sweepers before that at bat, because he's a DH and he's thinking these games through and he lives for baseball. So I bet you he saw like 25 flu-hardy sweepers last night and hit the last one, really well.
Yeah, doubled into left center field. Didn't miss a home run by much. Hit 2 home runs in the game. Shohei Ohtani went 4 for 4 with 4 extra base hits, which has happened only one other time in World Series history. You might remember Frank Isbell in 1905 doing that. No, you probably don't, because you weren't alive for that. No one was. Nobody on the planet saw that, because how could they? What? But
also, I mean, just like a record for total bases in a postseason. I think even in a postseason game, record for intentional walks that he received after he hit all those hard hits. He just received a bunch of intentional walks, beat Barry Bonds out for intentional walks, 4 to Barry Bonds' 3 in the World Series.
Yeah, they got to the point after the 4 extra base hits, the Jays just said, we're not pitching to him anymore.
I saw Mike Pietrello was somewhat facetiously wondering, will they walk him in the first AB tonight?
I don't think they will, but I can't say for sure anymore. There is a question about what the Dodgers could do to counteract that. My thought was, if they're taking their chances with Mookie, they actually intentionally walked Ohtani and Mookie at one point in extras because they just needed to get a matchup they wanted. They wanted to go lefty-lefty with Lauer against Freddie Freeman, and that actually worked out for them. It's either Mookie steps up and makes them pay for it, or the Dodgers make a little switcheroo atop the lineup. Would they put Will Smith behind Shohei Ohtani? Because Smith doesn't run a K rate as low as Mookie Betts, but I think based on their current form, he's a guy you fear a little bit more as far as who you'd rather pitch to if you're the Jays.
Yeah, I wonder. Their swings are a little bit different, so you might do it based on what sort of shapes you sort of expect to see from the starting pitcher. You could just basically say it's a little bit closer than it's ever been. I thought Mookie would be better prepared for this series and would be in better shape, but it doesn't. It looks like maybe some of that extra bat speed that he'd gained in the second half, he's starting to lose again. I mean, it just looks a little bit lifeless out there. Even when he gets hits, they're kind of singles. So maybe that's a move you make. I would be defensible. I personally don't spend too much time thinking about lineups because I think that it seems so important after the game, but before the game, you just don't know who's going to get up in what situation. Maybe you need Mookie to get on base, or maybe you need Mookie and Ohtani on base to get Will Smith the 3-run homer. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's like, I think I'm okay with the lineup as it's structured. What I'm not okay with, I think this was the big mistake on the Blue Jays part, on the Blue Jays manager's part. I think was it's not lineup, it's lineup based, but it's not starting lineup. He went to the reserves too often, too quickly, too early. And by the end of the game, and partially not his fault that George Springer got hurt, So you were always going to see, I guess, Ty France and Davis Schneider in this game. But you didn't have to see Tyler Heineman. And you didn't have to see Miles Straw. And we saw a lot of Miles Straw in the late innings. I felt like every time I was like, hey, this game could end. And then it was Miles Straw. And I was like, okay. I wish for the Blue Jays that this was not Miles Straw right now. And we looked at it, and I think you were making the case that, one sub was worse than the others. Because let's just take Ty France and David Schneider off the table. Whatever.
Yeah, you couldn't do anything about that. Springer got hurt. You made the best of the situation with the matchups, played it the way you could. I'm not going to be mad at John Schneider about that. But in the 8th inning, Barger gets on with a Mookie error. They decide to run Straw for Barger in that spot. And I think because that happened after you already lost Springer, even though you're playing for one run, you have to think about, what do you gain in this instance? In the case of Miles Straw, Miles Straw is faster than Addison Barger. It's about 1.5 feet per second faster. So you're getting someone who's like top end in sprint speed versus someone who's closer to like a league average runner. Is that toggle? And again, there was nobody out at the time they made this decision. Is that worth it in the 8th inning in a tight game where Barger's spot in the lineup could come back around? I think it's a difficult decision to make because you already lost Springer, though.
And Barger is one of your better, like if you need a power stroke later in the game, and are you sure you're going to win this game like 5-4 or whatever, to 4-3 or whatever, like.
Yeah, I didn't like that because of the Springer injury the inning before. Because now you've taken 2 of your most dangerous bats out of the game. One you lost out of your control, and one you just simply chose to eliminate to get a little faster on the base pass. And yeah, a little tidier defensively. Barger's not a bad defender. Like we've talked about his arm and the plays he's been making in the outfield. He's played really well out there, given how little time he spent out there in the regular season. That felt like the worst of the moves. Running for Kirk in extra innings with Heineman, you get 2 more feet per second on sprint speed. But you made that decision after already losing Springer to injury and taking Barger out. So the benefit that you end up getting later is not knowing how long the game is going to run. The game goes 18. If Alejandro Kirk caught 18 innings in game 3 and is one of your most important players in games 4 and 5, he's probably wiped out in the middle of the series.
Yeah,
exhausted.
So I don't mind that. I mean, even looking backwards, I don't mind that so bad. Yeah,
like that's your catcher, and he's important. But the Barger one is the one that I'm circling and just saying, really wish they hadn't gone that direction in that spot.
Yeah, I can't. Sometimes it's hard to take your analysis away from being able to see backwards, right? Like, did I hate that in the moment? I don't even remember at this point, but like, maybe did I even notice that it was happening? But I really hate it in retrospect because Barger would have been a great guy to have up in innings 11 through 18 when you just need someone to pop one.
Yeah. I think it's because I don't see enough in Miles Straw's bat to even remotely want him to hit in a postseason game. I just don't want that. I think he's a 8th, 9th inning defensive replacement. Maybe who do you have that you'd even run him for in your outfield? Nobody. The Barger's the only guy you'd think about doing that with. Maybe
but I would run him in the 9th, losing, needing to tie the game, or needing to win, or I don't know. I would run him in a very tight situation, the highest leverage possible, not in the one that they used him in.
Yeah, that felt to me. That decision felt like, of all of the things that I didn't like, and there weren't that many, that was the one that stuck with me as we played through 18 innings and had so many bench guys coming up in spots where you just didn't feel like there was even a slim chance of them hitting a homer to give the Jays a 1-run lead, or even just doubling and doing some damage just with an extra base hit. Like, none of that really seemed like it was on the table. There was some aggressive base running throughout this game. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. I mean, one play that
I think a lot of these were poor decisions. I don't know if they're poor decisions by the third base or first base coach, or if it was like a whole. It almost feels like it was an overlying thing where they said at the beginning of the game, let's be aggressive, let's push it, let's always take the extra base and go as hard as we can. And it really blew up in both their faces. I mean, both teams saw crucial outs at third and at home. It was kind of weird. It was way too aggressive, I thought. I don't know. And usually I think they're not aggressive enough, but in this case, they all got thrown out.
Yeah, the one play that ended up being aggression that wasn't punished, that could have been, I think, was the go-ahead run that Vlad scored. He scored on a first to home in the 7th. The throw was so far up the line.
By a good throw.
It was so far up the line. Will Smith still almost gathered it and found a way to get a tag on him. Vlad had to make a pretty good tag himself just to avoid it, or a pretty good slide to avoid it. The problem I have with some of this is, like, you want to be aggressive, but man, Roki Sasaki looked gettable. And unfortunately, one of those plate appearances was Ty France with 2 on and 1 out because of the Springer injury. So I kind of felt like we all got robbed of better baseball theater in that situation. And he hit a ball to Muncy, I think, that advanced the 2 runners that couldn't turn a double play. Roki almost missed the toss to first base at the end of the inning. Almost looked like it got stuck in his glove. So he was wobbling pretty good. But Tommy Edman did get some defensive redemption. I mentioned that ball that got away from him earlier in the game, the ball that Bichette hit over to the second base side. With 1 out in the 9th, Dalton Varsho smokes a liner off the top of Freddie Freeman's glove, and it lands just a little bit in the grass behind first base. Edman hustles over there, gathers it, throws a seed to get IKF over at third base. That one to me is a little more of maybe the proper aggression, but really good execution and just a good heads-up play by Edman.
And that's actually the case on every single one of these plays, if you think about it. Because as I lean, once you get a collection of these, you're like, oh, bad base running. And I just said that. So maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. But each of these plays had an element of good defense. Because one of the other ones was, how did it happen? There was a ground ball to short, and who's playing short? Jimenez gets the ball, and he throws it, and it might be a tight play at first, but Vlad cuts it off 3 feet into the infield and hucks the ball across the diamond. And he used to be a third baseman, so he has a pretty good arm, and he catches Teoscar, I think, at third.
Yeah, it's Teoscar Hernandez. That was to, I think, end the 6th inning. Trying
to move from just second to third on a grounder into the hole. So I think that's some partially bad base running and also really good defense. And then what was the cutoff play? There was a ball to the outfield where they were just hit the cutoff man beautifully. What was that? That was the Blue Jays put it in the outfield, and the Dodgers.
Yeah, that was a Nathan Lucas double off of Emmett Sheehan, and they sent Davis Schneider. He gets cut down at home. That was 5-5 in the 10th.
On just a perfect relay. I was like, my kids were watching. I was like, hit the cutoff man, hit the cutoff man, hit the cutoff man. Threw it all like perfectly to the catcher and got him.
That was another Tommy Edman throw. That was Teoscar Hernandez to Tommy Edman to Will Smith, who, even if Schneider had been there a little sooner, Will Smith had a perfect tag in position before Schneider even got there. Then he had a chance to kind of gather himself and tag him anyway. Jeff Hoffman had 2 scoreless in this one that had some traffic. I mean, that was pretty wild. Got out of it. I thought going into the season that Jeff Hoffman was a great signing by the Blue Jays. The more I've watched him in the postseason, the more it has been wobbly, like way more wobbly than you'd expect for as good as his stuff can be.
Well, the difference between 97 and 95, I think, is pretty big. I mean, when he was 97, he's 97, 98, sometimes 99. Now he's 95, 96, sometimes 97, and it's just not, he can't rely on the fastball the same way. So then he has to go to the slider and the splitter, which are great, but he doesn't command them as well. So then you get these like walks, 3-2 counts. You get a lot of sort of, amazing amount of nibbling for a guy that you bought for stuff, that was supposed to be your closer. So, one side note for me is, as we went into this, you did get the opportunity to see, some, I guess, unheralded parts of this roster, different, interesting to see Eric Lauer get out there and throw 4 2/3 scoreless in the middle of this game, at the end of this game. So that was cool. But also on the Dodgers side, Will Klein, who was traded, he got them from the Mariners. The guy they traded to the Mariners got DFA'd shortly after. But he's a guy who always had good velo, maybe not great command. And what he did with the Dodgers is a complete overhaul of his arsenal. He added a cutter and a sweeper. And where he used to be four-seam curveball, now he's four-seam cut sweeper. He can throw them in the zone because his sweeper is a 90-mile-an-hour sweeper. He's 98 with the fastball, so he's upped his zone percentage with the Dodgers. He was nasty. And that it's kind of fun to see Clayton Kershaw come out and get, big out with the bases loaded and be all fired up. And, even Edgardo Henriquez, I mean, the joke was that the Dodgers, I saw some funny social media posts. One was, I'd love to be on the mound when the announcer says, "This is all we've got left." Other one was, I think it was JJ Cooper was talking about like, this is the what the Dodgers have left in the bullpen, and they happen to throw harder than 99.9% of all players that have played in baseball before this day.
Yeah, okay. I mean, extra innings was bonkers for a lot of different reasons, but you get 6 scoreless innings from the 2 guys that were not on your roster in the LCS.
That's right.
When Edgardo Henriquez and Will Klein were added to the roster,
Tanner Scott and Vesia.
Yeah, I mentioned it as a footnote when we had Fabio Nardaya on last week, and it was like, well, those guys will pitch only in garbage time or some kind of extreme extra inning situation, and we didn't really talk a lot about them. Henriquez, I'd seen earlier in the season, was like, this is good stuff. I don't know if the command is going to be good, and he worked through it. I think it helped a lot that it was a bench-heavy version of the Jays lineup by that point in the game. There were a few pitches Eric Lauer threw in that game that I wondered if those would have turned into homers if it was a few degrees warmer. I mean, the Will Smith's swing in the 14th, that looked like he let off the 14th with a homer. That one for sure, I think, was out a few innings earlier with warmer temperatures.
He dropped his bat. He thought
he got it.
Yeah.
He thought he got it for sure. So, I mean, man, the Kershaw coming in with the bases loaded to face Nathan Lucas in the 12th. He got Lucas to chase ball 4. He rolled it over to the right side, and that ended the inning. But maybe that ends up being Kershaw's last moment on the mound at Dodger Stadium. Now, that ended up being a huge out for them. And in hindsight, you're like, oh, maybe they should have left him out there a little bit longer before going to Henriquez and Klein. But Klein threw 72 pitches. He gave up 1 hit. He walked a couple of guys, struck out 5. That is a ridiculous performance from a guy that no one thought was going to have a meaningful role at all in the series. It was the most pitches he'd thrown in a game since college. That's per Eric Steven from True Blue LA. I saw him in the dugout, and they were going to bring Yoshinobu Yamamoto into this game in the 19th. Yamamoto was warmed up. It looked like Yamamoto was coming on if that game went 19. And Will Klein sitting there in the dugout, and the camera's on him, and you could see his mouth say, "I'm so effing tired." Because, I mean, why wouldn't he be?
Well, he's still at 97, dude, 98. Like,
the velo was starting to tick down a little bit, and I think it was going to be Yamamoto the 19th. By all accounts, that's what it looked like it was going to happen. Instead, we had another great moment from Freddie Freeman in the postseason. He walked it off with a solo homer in the 18th. Freddie Freeman became the first player in big league history to hit 2 walk-off home runs in the World Series. And both of Freddie Freeman's walk-offs have been in extra innings, which makes me think that particular twist, that part he'll probably have forever. And it might be a long time before someone else hits 2 walk-off homers in the World Series anyway.
I mean, they have to keep going to the World Series. They have to be on a great team, you know.
The situation just coming up at all. You got to be a home. Or just all the things have to happen that way. What else can you say about Freddie Freeman at this point?
I mean, just it was a terrible pitch.
Oh, awful.
It's just a 92-mile-an-hour sinker right down the middle. But he hit it out to the biggest part of the park. He did it with flair and panache and put everyone to bed mercifully just before midnight on the West Coast. So if you on the East Coast watch this all the way through, kudos and get another cup of coffee.
Yep, get another cup of coffee. You're probably just waking up as this pod gets released. So glad you caught up on sleep. I mean, the amazing thing about all of this is the timing. Game 3 of the series having a game like this with back-to-backs on game 4 and 5, both of which will be played. The series has to go at least 5. And maybe it'll go longer. If the Jays can just win one of these next 2, it has to go back to Toronto.
A couple things before we go on. Just a couple of random things. First of all, like normally I kind of don't like extra inning baseball because what you see across baseball is that swing percentage goes up and to some extent bat speed goes up because everyone is just trying to, end the game. But when I looked through the numbers, I was surprised to find that the Dodgers and Jays, but mostly the Dodgers, 4 percentage points less swinging in the second half of that game. Their bat speed was the same. It was, the Blue Jays bat speed was down, but I think you rightly pointed out that's probably because of the personnel changes more than a change in approach. But the Dodgers lineup was largely the same in innings 1 through 9 and 9 through 18, and they swung less. So instead of doing the whole, it's extra innings, I need to end this game, for the most part, they kind of were like, we need traffic. We need to get people on base. We need to take walks. We need to, wait for our pitch. And the fact that happened and their bat speed went up a little bit, like, I think they were just like really dialing in and being like, I only want to swing. Like, what Alex Bregman once told me? I only want to swing on pitches I could homer on. That's sort of like I think the idea that the Dodgers took into that. And then, otherwise, I was at the last Dodgers 18 inning World Series game. That's the longest it's ever been. There's been 4 18 inning World Series games. That was a painful day for me, which is not a story for the pod, but if you're at First Pitch, you want to hear it, or any of our meetups, it's somewhat funny. But in that game, there were no double plays, no grounded double plays. In last night's game, there were no grounded double plays. Brad Paisley was the anthem singer in the other 18 inning Dodgers Red Sox, and Brad Paisley was the anthem singer in this one. In fact, every time Brad Paisley has sung the national anthem in the postseason, it has gone to extra innings. There have been 4 World Series games of 18 innings length, and only one of them had a double play in it.
It's weird. So weird. Because there were a bunch of double plays. You think about the long game between the Tigers and the Mariners. That would win 15. There were a ton of double plays in that game.
You figure that's how you kind of created an extra inning game a lot a times, right?
Right.
There's traffic and we cleaned it up.
Traffic gets erased by timely ground balls, and you're like, oh, that's a bummer.
But there was a question on Blue Sky where somebody was asking me about this, and when I looked at the regular season, there's been plenty. There's been 23 inning games with no double plays. A lot of them were in the 60s, a little bit more lower run environment. Maybe fewer runners on base, that sort of deal. But the World Series one stuck out. It was kind of funny.
The other thing I was going to mention, too, before we move on to Game 4, Freddie Freeman also had a ball he hit earlier in extra innings that looked like it might have been possible homer at a different time of day. It wasn't as close as the Will Smith one, but he was on it a little earlier against Eric Lauer. And
that's 2 lefties. I mean, he hit one out against the lefty.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It was a great game, and I just feel like the one thing we got robbed of were a couple of George Springer plate appearances that would have been high drama, heavy booze if he'd still been healthy to take those PAs throughout.
Maybe
some Barger opportunities for one big swing.
Innings. Yeah,
and of course Bo and Kirk. But of all of the other decisions, like, okay, maybe you don't love Kirk coming out when he did. Bo wasn't going to play 18 innings. That just was not good. Bo Bichette was not going to play 18 innings. There was no world that.
There was debate about whether or not he plays tonight in Game 4.
Right, and now I kind of feel like since they lost, and since Springer seems very questionable,
they might push Bo.
Bo might just be the DH tonight. That might be.
That's right. That's the easy way to get him back in the game. Yeah.
They might be comfortable pushing him through all 3 games if they can DH him if Springer can't go, which we don't know for sure at this point. But yeah, I mean, so many things that you could take away from Game 3 of the World Series. That last chapter of Yamamoto possibly pitching in the 19th, I think, would have just brought it to another level of pure insanity.
There was a funny moment in I don't know where they were. Maybe it was the clubhouse after the game. And they were talking to Dave Roberts, or they were recording Dave Roberts, and he's like, "We have a game tonight or later today, And Shohei perks up and gets so excited and goes into his pitching motion. I mean, dude is a kid, dude. He's just excited that there's a game today. and he gets to pitch. So that's endearing, I find. And, Shane Bieber against Shohei Ohtani on paper, I actually expect this to be a low-scoring game because I think they're all going to be tired. Ohtani was apparently, going into the clubhouse at like inning after inning to hydrate and like lie down because he was so tired. And he came back once with the scripted D, the alternate hat. And then somebody in the dugout had to be like, yo, you got the wrong hat on, go back. So, I wonder, but I still, I don't know. I think Ohtani is somehow just incredible for just the fact that he can do all these things and march through the fatigue to some extent. Maybe that's why he's had some injury concerns as a pitcher, is that, he's throwing so hard, he's hitting so hard, he's doing so much so hard all the time. But in this game, I expect him to at least go 5 or 6. I think Bieber is going to go 5 or 6. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. I don't know. I just think that everyone will be tired. I think this could be a 2-1, 3-2 kind of game.
Yeah, we'll see if Ohtani can somehow have a more valuable game than he did in Game 4 of the NLCS. I mean, without pitching,
then just give him the hardware, dude. I mean,
getting on base 9 times in a game. 9 times, the Ferris.
Have they ever
Bueller,
given the
9
MVP
times?
to a losing team? Could the Dodgers lose the World Series? They still get the MVP to Shohei.
You probably could in this instance. We'll see what he can do in Game 4. The over/under tonight. Producer Brian saying it's 8 seems fair. I think the only way,
but I mean, these are good offenses. But I might take the under just because of what happened last night.
Well, I think the fatigue factor on Ohtani that you mentioned is interesting. How does he bounce back from that? Yeah, he was out there with all the energy in the world after they won. Probably got that extra lift. Everybody on that side
How does he
got
feel
the extra
right
lift. You win
now?
that game. How does he feel this morning? How does he feel this afternoon? How does he feel when he's warming up? How does he feel in the 3rd or 4th inning today? I think those are fair things to wonder about. I think I'm still firmly in I expect him to be fine and great, but I mean, we saw the charcuterie boards covered in fruit in the dugouts. I think Jack Dreyer said he ate a steak at some point.
Yeah, you got to have a second dinner, dude. It's
6.5 hours. I mean, you're all going to get hungry again. So, yeah, this being Game 3 and not like Game 5 when there's an off day built in, I think could have some really interesting implications on the series. And I do think the silver lining in all of it for the Jays is at least Alejandro Kirk didn't catch all 18 innings, because that, I feel like in October, take the most tired guys on the field and throw that on them. Will Smith was back there for 18 frames on Monday night.
Yeah,
we'll
whose
see if there's any
bullpen's
sort of
in worse shape? I mean, Hoffman went 2. Roki, Sasaki went 1 and 2/3. I mean, they both basically threw 30 pitches. 29 for Sasaki, 33 for Hoffman. I mean, they've got to be available, but they can't be available, I think, for multiple innings, either of them.
Right. Hoffman, 33 pitches. Sir Anthony Dominguez, 27, didn't have the same command. Like, he served up that game-tying homer to Ohtani.
Which also was like, why that? They had a mound visit. They're
Just
talking to
didn't
him,
execute.
and then they go back into the bullpen. They're like, you think he got it? Yeah, he got it. Serve it up to him real sexy, like you said, boss.
He just missed badly. His command wasn't there.
Yeah.
I mean, Lauer, 68 pitches. We're not going to see Lauer pitch again in
yeah,
Game 4. Braden Fisher, 19. Brendan Little, 29. Little just seems like he's hit the wall. I think a few folks on Discord have been pointing that out. Just the season workload might have finally caught up to him. Varlin, 20 pitches. So even of the guys you expect to see again, slightly heavier workloads in Game 3. You got to see how they bounce back. Dodgers side, Robleski, 28. Probably not going to see Robleski again.
I think back to Bassett.
Only 8 pitches for Bassett. I think there's a good chance we'd see Bassett again at some point.
Maybe Bassett for 2 and Hoffman for 1, and you just try to get everybody else at rest.
That's probably ideal. Dodgers side
went 20. Do you know that Varland is like breaking records for appearances? And the last person who has been used as heavily as Louis Varland's been used this postseason was Brandon Morrow, who I have to tell you, it did not work out for him.
No, it did not end well health-wise for Brandon Morrow. Roki threw 29 pitches. I think he's available for 1, probably not going more than 1 when we see him.
Dreyer threw 5, so I kind of expect to see Dreyer and Sasaki, maybe Kershaw. Sheehan 37, 2 2/3. I don't think
No way.
You're going to Klein and Henriquez are out. Trinan looked terrible. So maybe tonight it's Bonda. It's a bunch of lefties. Bonda, Dreyer, Kershaw, and Sasaki could go back out there.
Yeah, that's the combination you expect them to turn to in some fashion. Wroblewski with 28 probably isn't pitching in game 4. If he does, it'll be for 1 inning instead of 1+. I think Trinan's a guy they might have to use even if they don't really want to because of what happened. Just
because he didn't throw as many pitches. I mean, he didn't look good. He didn't look sharp and gave up a hard hit and was all over the place and only got 1 out and 15 pitches. But you're kind of, at least it was only 15 pitches. We get to use them again.
Yeah, if you're at the bottom third of the lineup, you probably have to just take your chances with that based on everything that happened in game 3. But man, it's a great series so far. Curious to see what happens the rest of the way. I hope we don't see another 18-inning game, at least until a possible game 7. I don't think I can handle another 18-inning game until at least then.
This is colonoscopy week for me. I really don't want an 18-inning game.
Didn't think you were going to put that out there.
Soon.
No, it's a part of life. Didn't know you were going to share that with the listeners of the show.
I have to stop eating soon. It's nothing worse if Wednesday goes 18 and I'm watching it all hangry, dude. I'm not going to be happy about that.
Yeah, so we have pods Wednesday morning and presumably after the game Wednesday to get in front of
so you'll get to see how angry I am.
You're going to get
Wednesday morning and be
Eno.
Like, okay, and then Wednesday evening.
And we've got Trevor May, so if it goes 18 again, Eno may have to just pass out and it might just be a DVR Trevor show. I think if it goes 18 again, you do your appointment Thursday and Trevor and I record Thursday morning for sanity because a 2 a.m. pod might not be a very good pod. Maybe it'll be the best pod of all time. Probably not. Probably going to be a problem. Yeah. But man, what a game 3, what a series so far, and still a lot left to play potentially. We'll see what we get for George Springer status and what kind of bounce back we get from really everybody on both sides of this one. I guess the Jays position players are a little bit more rested because of those substitutions, so maybe that will end up making a difference. But how Ohtani looks on the mound is going to be a huge storyline for us in game 4.
I wonder how much I could be wrong too, of course, that, because this is the World Series, that maybe you're just living on adrenaline the whole way. Like I have had times where you're almost in this hypomanic. Hypo means just below, you're in this almost hypomanic stage where, remember back to like finals week in college or something where there's just like, there's times in your life where you've had very little sleep and you've just been buzzing.
Yeah, fight or flight kicks in and you're just surviving on.
You're just like, and it can last for more than one day. It can last for like even a whole week. And then usually you get a cold at the end or something. Like it's usually you like sleep for, 18 hours and wake up and have a cold or whatever. But so it could be that they just stay in this. I was going to joke like, oh, it's time for the Red Bull and coffee monstrosity, but maybe they don't need it. Maybe they get back to the park and it's like, well, it's another World Series game. I'm still here. I got 3 hours of sleep and I'm ready to go.
How much do you think it helps being at home, sleeping in your own bed, as opposed to being in a hotel?
Me personally, huge. I hate sleeping in hotel beds. And I think there's actually some research out about it. And of course, it's totally intuitive. It's like the pillow's not right, I love people who travel with pillows, I hear them.
It makes all the sense in the world. I will remind everybody, we're talking about 5-star hotels in this case, like a Ritz-Carlton or something, which I've never even stayed in a 5-star hotel.
The stiffer pillow or the softer pillow. Or
relatively speaking, the ability to rest and recover on the road for a big league player, not quite as bad as if you were in, single A or something like that and had to come back to the yard after 18 innings the day before or something. But anyway, it's just one of those things. The creature comforts of being home probably make it a little easier to show up at the ballpark and feel better than if you're somewhere else.
Yeah, I think so.
But that is why the pros. Looking forward to seeing how this one plays out. We are going to go on our way out the door. A reminder, you can join our Discord. Had a lively game chat running last night. I was not as engaged in the chat as I would have liked to be. I'll try to be more engaged in there for Game 4 because my attention is not being pulled in 7 different directions during the actual game. Thanks to our producer, Brian Smith, for putting this episode together. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Wednesday.
Thanks for listening.